Good morning. I'll go ahead and have you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kylie Manganell. I am a sixth grade world studies teacher.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your experience with culturally responsive teaching. So my first question is, can you describe your experience with culturally responsive teaching?
Yeah. Um, so I think culturally responsive teaching is something that I started learning about as an education major. And in my classroom, I try to focus on building relationships with students and getting to know them as individuals, and giving them opportunities to share things about themselves and their cultural background, especially in a world studies classroom. Sometimes that comes up naturally. And for me, it's really about creating a classroom environment where students feel comfortable, and they can show themselves and who they are so that I can learn them. I think like it with culturally responsive teaching, I think sometimes the solution that I see sometimes other educators try to do is like make assumptions about their students and their background and then try different tactics or strategies based on who they think their students are. But for me, it's more about getting to know them as individuals and then, using my relationships with them to either, I don't know, choose a quote for the week that's someone that I know that they like or from their culture, or give them different ways of sharing and contributing in the classroom.
Great, thank you. And how has culturally responsive teaching influenced your classroom practices?
Yeah. I think it's definitely made me more flexible and adaptable. And I think I'm always trying to remember that like one size doesn't fit all, and that each of our students come in with different needs, and I try to meet them where they are, which sometimes gets messy. But I think it's just made me more reflective, I would say, and like adaptable as an educator.
Great, thank you. And how do you ensure that your curriculum and teaching materials are inclusive of diverse cultural backgrounds?
Yeah. So I try to highlight different figures from the different cultures that we study. And again, like I try to bring it in small ways. Like I have a quote of the week, and so I purposely choose who I'm sharing quotes from for the quote of the week. And I try to vary it. Like sometimes it is Albert Einstein, and then another week it's Drake. So trying to like just add different voices into my classroom in whatever small ways I can, and like even like I have some like quotes in the back of my room, and I intentionally chose them to represent a wide array of cultures, gender representations, nationalities, and I also included their pictures so that the students could see them and, I don't know, see people who maybe looked like them or are more similar to them. And I think it's sometimes tricky because I teach ancient world history, but also sometimes asking questions to bring it into the present, like how would Hammurabi's code be received today? And then giving them opportunities to think about issues that may be facing them in the present.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, and what strategies do you use to get to know your students' cultural background?
Yeah, I think I try to bring that in using my warm-ups a lot. So sometimes my warm-ups will be content related, sometimes they'll be more sort of silly get to know you questions. And even those I find give me an opportunity to get to know students as people. And then I try to make a point to have one-on-one conversations with the students during class. I sometimes I'm more formal about it, like I have a checklist and I'll make sure that I'm talking to students, but really just trying to build rapport, always greeting them at the door, using their names, just making sure that like at some point during a week I've had at least a 1-minute conversation with every single student that I teach.
Okay. And how do you create a classroom environment that values and respects diverse cultures and backgrounds?
That's hard. I think, again, I try to encourage as much participation as possible. So, like, I like to reward students for participating in class discussions or activities, even if, they don't answer the question right or whatever the case may be. I always thank them, or I even have like raffle ticket system, different things just to encourage them to participate. And again, sometimes asking more of those like get to know you questions as warm-ups and getting as many kids to respond as possible. I think also, again, just trying to create a classroom climate where the students feel comfortable enough to share and respond to certain questions that may be more sensitive. I think even in my assignments, I try to create opportunities, whether that's like a check-in or I don't know, just building little like nuggets into different activities where they can share more information about themselves.
Great, thank you. And how do you involve students' families in the learning process and acknowledge their cultural contributions?
Yeah, so I use the Talking Points app to message families, which is really nice because it will automatically translate any messages that I send into their home language. So I'll chat with parents in that app about what's going on in class or sometimes different assignments. I think that's one area where I could definitely do more is like bringing more parent or family voices into the classroom. That hasn't really happened, but I think that's something that I would love. And I know like as we get further along in the year, specifically like towards the end of the year when we have a unit on culture, I think that there is like a multicultural fair that takes place at the school. So hopefully we'll be able to build on that in our class.
Awesome. And how do you handle sensitive or controversial cultural topics in your classroom?
It's tricky. One example is like we are talking about ancient Mesopotamia, and there were slaves in ancient Mesopotamia, and for a lot of these students, the only context they have of slavery is American slavery, and specifically only like Black people as slaves. And so there have been some like touchy moments in some of my class periods around this topic, and trying to, I guess my way of trying to address it is by creating a dialogue. I always ask questions like, why is it that you're saying that? Or where is that idea or belief coming from? And then if it's one that is maybe incorrect or offensive, like using alternative information to educate them, make them more aware, and again, just like not, I guess, shying away from those conversations when they do come up, leaning into them as a learning opportunity.
Okay. And what do you do to address potential bias or stereotypes in classroom discussions?
I think I try to narrow the focus of classroom discussions and conversations and keep them tied to, like, let's say the specific text or video or source that we're referencing. And with that also like presenting multiple voices or sources of information. So like with Hammurabi's code, like we're looking at various laws, different background readings, and like we've watched a video, and when we're having the conversations about whether or not it's just keeping those tailored to the sources that we've been using, I think helps to prevent some of the bias, but also just like when students are answering questions or having discussions, like encouraging them to use evidence and to support their thinking with information from the class.
Okay, thank you. And last question, what professional development or training have you sought to enhance your cultural responsiveness as an educator?
So I'm in a course through MCPS right now called like I don't remember the exact title, but it's essentially about like creating a welcoming classroom environment and culture responsive teaching. It's specific, especially for teachers who are new to the district and younger teachers or newer in their career. So I've been doing that for the past couple of months, and then I just try to like listen to podcasts, read, learn on my own when I can, and also like get student feedback on how they feel about what's going on in class, like through student surveys. I've done 2 of those thus far, and then using that as an opportunity to reflect on my practice.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.